Many of our friends from other religions think Catholics sound arrogant when we say ours is the one true faith. And honestly, I can understand why at face value that claim can sound exclusive or even dismissive of others. But here is the real question. Can we as Catholics confidently affirm that Catholicism is the one true religion while still acknowledging the elements of truth and goodness that exist in other faiths? To explore that tension, we will first hear Micheal Knowles' perspective on what it really means to make such a claim. Let's listen.
My question when it comes to religion is that there are so many different religions out there, and every religion believes that they are right. How do you know which one is the correct one if there are so many out there?
Well, you use your reason, and you separate fact from fiction, and you believe the more persuasive arguments, and you throw out the less persuasive arguments, and that's what you do with religion when it comes to theology. Theology is faith-seeking understanding. So it's applying logic and the rigors of reason to religious claims. And religion is just simply a habit of virtue that inclines the will to give to God what he deserves. So we talk about multiple religions, but there's really only one religion. And we're all just trying to figure out what it is.
But do you believe that other sects of that religion are incorrect?
I'm Catholic.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think that's the true faith. So inasmuch as a religion contradicts that, I think that religion is wrong. Of course, but that's just Aristotle's non-contradiction principle, right? You can't simultaneously believe things that are in opposition. I think even the most atheistic person would say that certain religions seem more plausible than other religions. What would be a good example of this without offending a wide swath of the audience? Most people out there would say that Christianity is more plausible than Scientology. Right? Why? Well, because Scientology makes all these crazy claims about machines and technology. Okay. Like space aliens. Right? Okay. Well, kind of actually the claims are you guys Scientologists? Mm-hmm. You are. I had a feeling. Okay. A bad example then. So we would say that, okay, well, if Christianity is more persuasive than Scientology, then, okay, you've just dismissed one of the religions. Well, how about the other ones? Do you think it's more persuasive than Islam? I do. I think that the historical claims of and the theological claims of Christianity are more persuasive than Islam. Okay, we got rid of that one. How about Judaism? I have great respect for my Jewish friends and my Muslim friends and even Scientologists, some of them. But Judaism says Jesus is not who he says he is. Christianity says Jesus is who he says he is. Well, I don't know. What is it? And then one investigates this question, and I've arrived at the conclusion that he is who he says he is. Okay, so there goes that religion. How about Buddhism? Well, all the Buddhists I know are just like liberal women in northern Westchester who wear tight pants and, meditate during this. So they're not right about anything. I can easily dismiss that religion. How about Hinduism? Some of my best friends are Hindus. But that's a non-theistic religion. So that's a pretty easy one to reject off the bat because it contradicts plenty of logic and conclusions I've already come to about the nature of being and who created everything. Okay, well, I think we've just handily gotten rid of all the other religions, right? Now you might say, well, there's a lot of different sects of Christianity. That's true. I just think that the historical claims and the theological claims of the church go back to antiquity. They're well attested to over 2,000 years, and so that's how I landed on that one. Your mileage may vary. Maybe you come to a different one. But at the very least, we've landed roughly in the neighborhood of one another here. We don't just have to throw up our hands and say, well, Johnny says this and Jack says that, so who the hell knows? Everyone can believe whatever they want. Let's not try to arrive at any.
As Micheal Knowles explains in this clip, when you are confronted with the question of what is true and what is false, you don't just go by feelings or family tradition. You examine the arguments, you weigh the evidence, test the logic, and follow reason wherever it leads. It's a journey, a genuine pursuit of truth with a capital T. If you sincerely go on that journey, you will discover that the case for Christianity is far more persuasive than any of the other religion. The claims of Christ, the coherence of the gospel, and the historical reliability of the resurrection stand on a completely different level. And within Christianity itself, Knowles says the Catholic Church makes the most compelling and internally consistent case for truth in her doctrine, her continuity, and her authority. That's why, as a matter of reason and conviction, he believes the Catholic faith isn't just a true faith, it is the true faith. Now let's see what Bishop Barron says about taking the leap of faith toward Christianity.
You have to take into account the illative sense. So Newman says when you assent to something, it's very rarely on the basis of like a clinching argument. Like, oh, got it, relatively simple things you can show with that kind of, intellectual rigor. Usually it's a combination of all kinds of elements, right? It's reason, it's experience, it's the witness of saints, it's the sacraments, it's looking at Notre Dame Cathedral, it's hunch, it's intuition, it's a whole range of things. Our friend Chesterton, you'll know the line better than I, and he say, like, why'd you become a Catholic? And he said, well, there are 1,000 reasons, but all adding up to it's true. And I think he's reflecting the Newman instinct there, that, to say, here's the clinching argument why I think Catholicism is the right religion. So that's a first observation. Let me also illuminate it this way. You can, with reason, show that many of the tenets of Catholic Christianity are correct, are rationally defensible. So it's not simply a matter of an arbitrary choice, or like, you got your hobby, I've got mine, or your favorite color is blue, mine's green. No, you can show in a rationally compelling way, using philosophy, using reason, that many of the tenets of Catholic Christianity are true. So Thomas Aquinas called these the preambula fidei, the preambles to the faith. And they include the existence of God, God's infinity, God's omnipotence, the existence of the soul. We can go through a whole slew of things that can be demonstrated through reason. So you say, hey, you're convinced this is right. To some degree, I can say, yeah, let me show you. Let me demonstrate to you why I think this is the case. So it's not just an arbitrary thing. But here's the second observation there. We say reason and faith. So the claim of Catholic Christianity is that God, whose existence I think can be known through reason, God has revealed to us, not just in many and fragmentary ways, but in the fullness of time, I'm quoting the letter to the Hebrews now, in the fullness of time, he's spoken to us through his Son, which means through his Logos, through his Word, so that God, in an unsurpassably efficacious way, has spoken himself in Christ Jesus. Moreover, in the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, Jesus claimed to be the Logos, to be divine, was ratified. I think when you take all that into consideration, you say, well, there is something that's unsurpassable, therefore, about the revelation contained in Christianity. So again, I'm speaking kind of very broadly here.
As Bishop Barron explains, the truth of Catholicism isn't something that can be proven by a single decisive argument. It's not like solving a mathematical equation where everything neatly falls into place. Instead, it's something that becomes clear when you step back and contemplate the entire landscape of truth. He draws here on St. John Henry Newman's idea of the elative sense, the deep intuitive perception that allows the human mind to grasp truth when various lines of reasoning, experience, and evidence come together. It's through this convergence of philosophical insight, historical context, moral beauty, personal encounter, and the lived witness of the saints that one begins to see, yes, the Catholic faith is truly the full and complete expression of God's revelation. At the same time, Bishop Barron is quick to point out that this doesn't mean faith is irrational or anti-intellectual. Far from it. The claims of Christianity and the Catholic Church can indeed be supported by rigorous logical reasoning. Finally, in the last clip, Bishop Barron explains that just because we as Catholics proclaim our faith to be one true religion, that does not mean we reject or condemn everything in the world's other religions as evil or worthless. Let's listen.
In all the great religious traditions and religious philosophies and so on, you can find elements of truth. You can find truth to some degree. You can find rays of light, and that seems obvious to me. I mean, there's no religious tradition. There are a lot of, let's say, silly, fringe sort of, religious expressions, but think of the mainstream religious expressions in the human race. If there was nothing true in them, there was nothing good or beautiful or valuable, they would never have survived. They would never have fed people for so long. So the church, I think, very gratefully acknowledges these facts. But the fullness of truth, the fullness of it, in that sense, the one true religion, it doesn't mean all the other ones are simply false. It means they participate in the truth to a lesser degree. Now, let me give an analogy for this, maybe. So, do you remember that scene in the beginning of Good Will Hunting, the famous film where the professor at MIT puts this complex formula or equation or something, problem on the board, and he challenges the students, can anyone solve this? and the students all try in different ways. And the star of the movie solves it. But my point is this. Is there one correct answer to that problem? Well, yeah, there is. There's one perfectly correct, adequate answer. But might a professor at MIT, or bring it down to grade school math if you want, might a professor say, yeah, the answer you gave, that's not correct, but it's close. It's getting there. You did a lot of it correctly, And then another one, yeah, that's good and that's good, but no, you see how you're falling short of the full answer. And then maybe there's some that, no, that's just ridiculous. No, you're not even in the ballpark. You're not even close to solving it. Or maybe some never even tried. My point is, you can say there's the one correct answer. Yeah, that's right. But you don't have to, therefore, simply denigrate every other answer. You can say, no, to varying degrees, they approach the fullness of the correct answer. Now, let me just stay with that analogy because it helps me a little bit. So there I'm looking at, major problem and finding the solution. That's putting the stress all on us, that we're going to strive to figure this out, and some get it and some don't, right? But let's suppose the guy that writes the equation for you and watches as you try to solve it, at some point gives you the answer and says, no, this is actually the answer. And I realize that none of you is really going to get this completely right. And I now want to reveal the answer to you. And I'm the one who posed the problem. So I know the solution to it, and I want to give it to you. Now we're getting into the realm of faith as opposed to mere reason. If the puzzle is, let's say, human life, the meaning of it all, or whatever you want to say, that's the puzzle, that's the conundrum. And we're all striving to figure it out. And some are getting closer than others, right? But then in the fullness of time, the one who gave us the conundrum also deigned to give us the answer to it, revealed to us the answer. Well, then I would say, yeah, that's it. That's the right answer, And that would be, that's the one true answer, was given to me by the one who originally posed the conundrum. Now we're getting in the ballpark of what we mean by a revealed religion accepted in faith. Now, once that answer is given, can I strive to understand it more fully using my reason? Of course, that's called theology, right? Now, fides quaerens intellectum, faith seeking understanding. So once the answer was given, maybe it's like, I'm not really bright enough to really see why that's the answer. But now having studied it more, now I get it. Now I see why, yes, that is the answer. See what I'm doing here, Brandon? In a way, I'm trying to just get at this thing from different angles because it's, in a way, a notoriously complex problem. There isn't like a neat single argument that sums it up, but there's different ways of approaching this problem.
Just to summarize what Bishop Barron is saying, first, as the Second Vatican Council clearly teaches, particularly in Lumen Gentium, the Catholic Church acknowledges and respects the elements of truth and holiness found in all world religions. These glimpses of divine truth and goodness can genuinely move people toward God. However, the Council also states unambiguously that the fullness of truth and the ordinary means of grace necessary for salvation are found in the Catholic Church alone. In other words, while other religions may contain rays of the truth, the Catholic Church possesses the full light, the complete revelation of God in the person of Jesus Christ and the sacraments he instituted. Secondly, Bishop Barron explains that when we look at the great monotheistic faiths, Judaism and Christianity, we can see a beautiful unfolding of divine revelation. In Judaism, God reveals himself as the creator and covenant partner of his chosen people, guiding them through history and forming them in faith. In Christianity, that revelation reaches its ultimate fulfillment when God himself becomes man in the person of Jesus Christ, the eternal Word made flesh. So which means reason can take us far in understanding truth, but at some point, we must make the leap of faith, trusting in whatever God has revealed about himself. In conclusion, I would like to echo the words of Venerable Fulton Sheen, who once said, "There are not many religions, there is only one. All others are deviations. The Catholic Church is the one true religion because it was founded by the one true God." I hope this video is helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.